Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the story of you through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, producer of the show. Thrilled to have you here. We've got a great guest. This guest and this interview are really, really special today. Before I get to that, I want to remind you that Ian has his brand new book, The Story of You, available now everywhere fine books are sold. Also, there is an audio version available, and it is with Ian himself reading it. So I always love it when you get to hear the author read their works, and so I'm glad Ian got to read his. Listen, today we've got a great guest, Enneagram Five, Brant Hansen. He's an author, radio host, advocate for healing children with correctable disabilities through Cure International, and it's close to his heart because Brant himself was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and he's overcome a lot in his life. He's the author of a brand new book called The Men We Need, and Ian and Brant will get into that. He's written for CNN.com, The Washington Post, U.S. News and World Report, Relevant Magazine, and numerous other outlets. He hosts his own podcast called the Brant and Sherry Oddcast. We're happy to have Brant here. I personally was so moved and impacted by the way Brant opened up in today's show. I know you're going to love it. I'm glad you're here. That's it for me, Anthony Skinner. Love to you all. And now, without any further ado, here's the host of our show, Ian Cron.
Brant Hansen, Enneagram 5. Welcome to Typology.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Well, we'll find out.
I've listened to the show for a while, and my wife loves it, and so it really is an honor. It's like, wow, this is cool. I'm on it.
Thank you so much. And I'm joking, but lots of people have said that at the beginning and left with an entirely different impression. You've got this wonderful, wonderful new book out, and I want you to tell people all about it.
Sure. It's called The Men We Need, and it's about distinct masculinity that is modeled after being a keeper of the garden. And that means being makers of spaces where the vulnerable can thrive. And I feel like that was Adam's job, to protect that space and create that space. And I feel like a lot of guys don't have that vision for themselves, so I wanted to lay that out. And I think a lot of the deconstruction of masculine ideas has been pretty healthy, like a lot of it. There's a lot of toxic stuff that we do need to get rid of, but I'm left going, okay, well, what's the good thing we can look at? What's something beautiful that's beneath all of that? That's a vision we can actually give people something, because we need a construct too, not just a deconstruct. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I don't get into gender theory and stuff like that much. I really wanted it to be more just of a practical wisdom book, especially for guys to go, this is what masculinity looks like when it's at its absolute best. And that's the cultivator and the protector, and the man who creates that space, and people can flourish because he's around.
That's well said. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So you're an Enneagram 5.
Yeah.
And I want to know, because I have a special affection for Enneagram 5s. Two of my best friends are Enneagram 5s. I have a circle of about 5 close friends. 2 of them are 5s, who I have just a deep and profound love for. And by the way, you also have Asperger's, which is an interesting conversation about 5s and Asperger's, right? That we can have at some point.
Yeah, people have asked me, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, I actually thought you might have it, where the 5 starts and begins, and where the Asperger's starts and begins too, because there's so much overlap. But that's squarely where I am, and my son is the same way. We're both clearly 5s, but he's on the spectrum as well.
And what's your wife's type?
She's a 1, and she's the one that got me into the Enneagram, and I was very skeptical about it. I'm skeptical about all the typology systems. I just, you don't want to be categorized, you don't want to be put in a box, all that. You've heard all this before. But the fact that she found so much validity in her type as a 1, which she would say her biggest problem is criticism, accepting it, taking it to heart, because she's got this internal critical dialogue already going on where she's already castigating herself all the time. And so it's difficult for me to speak into that. But the winning thing to me was the way that she took it so seriously and took it to heart, and the way the Enneagram critiqued her. And she said, I need to change in this way. I've realized this is who I am, in all the ways that drive her crazy. just nailed that. And her humility and being willing to go, okay, I'm going to change. And I didn't have to say anything. I mean, this wasn't me foisting, hey, picking at her personality or too much this, that. But that's really winning. If your spouse takes that sort of thing on and humbles herself and becomes a more pleasant person to live with, like, to me, that was quite an endorsement. And the fact that she could see me on this, and that allowed me to read it, and I had to say, yeah, that's entirely me. To the point that, and you make this point in your book, it's stuff that bothers you about yourself. Mm-hmm. And there's things I have a hard time, honestly, in your podcast, the personalities I enjoy the most are everybody but five. Mm. It's hard for me to listen to the fives.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I guess because it just hits home too much or something.
Well, I think we had a research psychologist on. His name was Richard Beck, and Richard's a marvelous psychologist and a deep thinker. And he had the same experience. When he heard about the Enneagram, he rolled his eyes, and he's like, there is no scientific evidence that will support this system. And then his wife got deeply into it. And he began to see profound emotional, psychological, and spiritual changes in her. And then he began to read it and was convinced of its validity. And but what he said was that anecdotal evidence is evidence.
Yes.
Right.
And
so he just ran with the idea that I don't need to see charts and graphs. I'm living with the evidence itself that the system works.
Yeah, obviously, and I'm a believer in God, and I take people's stories at face value as a story. Like if somebody's had an experience that has changed them, I don't say, okay, let me subject this to some peer-reviewed whatever. It's like, no, I just listen to the person, and sometimes it's very helpful. So, yeah, that's exactly what happened to us, and I didn't want to accept it. But on the other hand, it opened up something which I hadn't even thought about my desire to conserve energy at every level. Which, again, you talk about in the book that's a huge issue for us as fives. But I heretofore hadn't even thought about that. That's what I was doing. I didn't have a name for it, but sure enough, that's exactly what I do on a daily basis. And I'm constantly afraid, honestly, that people are going to come and just drain me, and I'll just be left on the street, lying limp, just socially exhausted, unable to function.
Right.
We're grateful that you said you saved all your energy for this interview today.
I totally did. I haven't talked all day. I'm like, I'm going to have an interview coming up. I'm going to have some personality. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I hear you, and we do appreciate your saving your relational energy for our time together. What was it about the five that most, if I can use this word, maybe too strong, repelled you? When you read it, you're like, I just don't want to see this dimension of who I am.
I hate the hoarding of information, but it's all I do. I'm scared to not have it. I'm scared to show up and not know everything. So I'm probably typical in a sense. Like in high school, I was... Well, this is not typical. What am I saying? I was the president of the Illinois Student Librarians Association. I'm like, oh, this is common. Everybody's doing that. That's not common.
You can't make this up, man.
But think about that. Like, literally, so I just want to know things. So I was on, the Quiz Bowl, and I dominated. Like, my brother was an athlete and was popular with girls and stuff. I just absolutely dominated trivia. It was my area to know things. And it was embarrassing if I didn't know everything. I memorized tables of baseball statistics, like all of that advanced analytics and stuff. That was my thing. I didn't have much of a social life. That's all I did was pore over these stats and try to come up with algorithms for better player evaluation and whatnot. But I wanted to never not know who led the league, an on-base percentage in 1983 or whatever. I don't like that about me now. I don't want to be a know-it-all. I joke about it. I'm a radio host, so on the air I do joke about the fact that I'm one of those actually guys, who's like, well, actually, it ruins a good joke, or Nobody likes that guy. But I don't want to. I want to be free to forget. Because nobody's judging me that way. Like in my mind, they are. There's like this audience of people are going to find me wanting if I don't have something insightful to say about Russian history. But that's not reality. That's a lot of energies going there that I don't think is necessary. And I want to change. As I get older, I want to be a more graceful man who can listen and isn't so concerned about hoarding information. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever found yourself hoarding love and affection from those who most want to support you in life?
Yes, is the answer. And to elaborate, to give you a more interesting answer, I was just reading yesterday one of those studies you've seen them about where they ask old people, like, what do you regret the most? And the only one that really resonated with me, but it hit me hard for somebody who's not particularly emotional, was the one about, I wish I would have expressed my feelings more. And, these are people at the end of their lives, and I know that's a problem for me. It has been. And I'm getting better. But that's actually been a function of the Enneagram too, to help me realize. And I just have read your book. So this is an organic mention of the fact that I just had read your book. But you mentioned that in the chapter about fives, like rewriting your story, is that you can do this. I don't know why I'm so scared or something and haven't been able to say to people who love me. It's very hard for me to say, even to my wife, 32 years of a great marriage, I love you. Does not come naturally. Why? I don't like that. Because I do love her. She knows it, but I've gotten better lately, last few years. I've been telling my mom I love her. And I've always withheld that. I'm not even sure why. I did hear you, and cut me off if I'm soliloquizing here, but I did hear you talking about Tim Mackey. I missed that episode, the guy from the Bible Project, who I really like. I haven't met him. About him watching Inside Out with his daughter or something, the movie, and just bursting into sobs. And I understand that. I'm wondering if, like, I in my mind, I see myself as not being very emotional, but I'm wondering if, like, I'm almost afraid that if I cross that veil, it's just going to be a flood. Like it's all going to come out at once or something.
I think many fives feel that if they open the door to powerful feelings, that they might be surprised at the intensity of the experience.
Yeah.
And that, let me ask you this about your childhood. Did you grow up, typically fives have one of two, I don't want to be too reductive here, but let's say one of two experiences. One would be what in psychology we call overwhelmment. It's this, if you have a parent or a sibling or a culture in which you just feel emotionally overwhelmed by the other. Or sometimes we call that engulfment. It's almost as though you feel psychologically intruded upon. And so you just kind of run up into the mind where it's safer, right? Were either of those describe your experience? Or?
I'm going to go with C, which is both A and B.
E, all the above.
Did you have very emotional? Did you have a very emotional parent, or a parent who wanted to get too much into your business?
Not into my business. I had a frightening upbringing. Now, my dad was a pastor, and very fundamental, small town pastor, and we moved around a lot because of different traumatic things that would happen. Now, they wound up getting divorced when I was maybe 6th or 7th grade, and they got remarried to each other, and then divorced again when I was maybe a freshman in high school. And there was a lot of, I was very scared often. Teeth chattering, knee knocking, literally knees knocking, scared at times. And so the way I would normally deal with it, I had an older brother who was the best. We're still best friends. But the way I would normally deal with it, I would hide in the bathroom and lock the door, and I would sit on the floor. These are in tiny houses too. I mean, you can't get away from anything. We didn't have much money, but I would just start thinking of stories. I had like a puppet I would play with, and I would think of stories. But I did this all the time, and I was just utterly frightened. This is one reason too I'm writing this book about masculinity, because I'm like, I decided then, like, I know what I'm going to do as a dad, and my kids are going to come home, or I'm going to come home and they're going to go, Daddy, you're going to be happy I'm there. But there's a lot of being scared and overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed, and absolutely retreating into the life of the mind, without question. And I have an operating theory too about humor. I think, like, I use self-deprecatory humor a lot, but I also have a very absurd sense of humor. I'm a huge Monty Python fan.
Every five I know loves British comedy, man. They can't get enough of British comedy.
Can't get enough. It's that's true. Blackadder, the British Office.
You're speaking my love language, by the way. This is Father Ted. I watched them all.
All of it. Okay, good. Yeah, and I'm a Chesterton guy too. Like, I really love all of that. But I had heard, I don't know who said it originally, but if you grow up with pain, you're probably going to be a Monty Python fan. I do think that goes into your development of your sense of humor. I have to deal with it with absurdity. Mm-hmm. So everything becomes an absurd joke to me.
Mm-hmm. And fives are brilliant at it. Like because fives have an unparalleled power of observation, right? They're constantly scanning the horizon. And because fives typically observe life from a distance rather than participate in it.
That is correct.
Right? So what happens is you're constantly like watching and analyzing and watching, aggregating information, watching, analyzing. And that means that you're observing the politics of the room, who's talking, who's doing what. And at just the right moment, when there's a pause in the conversation, the five inserts the one sentence that brings the room to its knees. Right? It's just like, right? Everyone just starts laughing hilarious because nobody else observed it. It was something that only the five could kind of see and register and then broadcast in very pithy terms.
That's so true. And the irony is, I'm a radio host, but I never wanted to be. I want to be the sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to be the guy. I always wanted to be the other guy who could observe what's going on and have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the guy that's going blah, 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 blah. Like, I want to be the guy that says something about the guy. And I feel like my best comedic space is mocking things. And I know that's not necessarily a healthy thing, but it's true. Like, that's just, but how else are you going to deal with stuff? I don't know how in the world, anybody, like, looking back, how is that boy going to be as an adult if he's going to be healthy? Like, that, to me, this is probably the best case scenario. And I still have puppets, and I'm pretty good with them.
Mr. Rogers, man.
Man, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Mr. Rogers, like, I get him.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read a lot of fantasy and science fiction stuff like C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and...
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, my boy and I just went to Oxford and went to the Eagle and the Child just to be in their presence, so to speak. Went to the Inklings pub. Like, we're huge fans. And that's obviously a sweet spot for fives.
Oh my gosh, yes. And when I oftentimes when I have a little kid come, I meet a little kid and the parents, I think he's a five. I go, does he read J.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis? Does he like gaming? Does he like going into the woodshed and dragging 5 books with him and like hiding from the rest of the family that's draining and deleting everything in him?
That's absolutely right.
Folks, I want to tell you about a new product I've been using. I recently started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted a more efficient way to optimize my immune system. So why Athletic Greens? Well, many of us take a multivitamin to support our health, but for me, it's really important to choose one with high quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. Otherwise, it can be a waste of money. Since adding athletic greens to my morning smoothie, I noticed I've been sleeping better and can tell a difference in my mental clarity and alertness, which, as you know, is important for a guy of my age. And since it's trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais and recommended by professional athletes, I know it's a quality product. All right, so what is this stuff? Well, with 1 scoop a day, Athletic Greens provides 75 high-quality, highly absorbable vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help me start my day right. Their special blend supports my gut health, my nervous system, my immune system, my energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all in 1 scoop. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially through the flu and cold season. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/typology podcast. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/typology podcast to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So you've written this book about healthy masculinity, of recapturing, reimagining masculinity in a cultural, social context in which there's a great deal of confusion about what does it mean to be a man. It's interesting. Actually, our mutual friend Mike Cusick and I he invited me to be a therapist on a weekend for addicts. And one of the most amazing moments in it was we had a person who shared that what they were trying to find was the reason they were there, and the reason for their addiction was because they wanted to find their own masculine self. And it was a very beautiful multi-day journey of uncovering that with that person. But all to say, I think that person's emblematic of a greater cultural confusion, if you will, about what it means to be a man. And what's fascinating about this book is that this isn't a book that's about information. This is a very heart book. So we're talking here about, I have so much trouble with emotions. I have so much trouble. You as a 5, but yet you've written a very heartfelt book.
I think, and you're right. And I had to keep fighting off the academic direction with this because I kept thinking, no, Brant, just be a blessing to people, because there are people that can write a better academic treatise. And there's books all over the place about different, constructions and deconstructions of masculinity and gender and whatnot. Like, no, I want to be a blessing. So that's what I have to do every day, because my radio show, I'm literally asking God, please give me what I need, my resources that I need for today to be a blessing to people. Please, because I don't feel like I have them. But then I remember Jesus saying, here's how you pray. Pray for your daily bread. And as a 5, that prayer is, Lord, give me the energy that I need to make it through today, please. To be a blessing to people. Let me say things that to be a blessing. So I'm constantly in that posture of, I don't have what it takes today. God, please give it to me. And I kind of took that with this book to just say, just be a blessing. Don't go down the argument road. And I know some people are going to be like, you make any distinctions about anything in this realm, you can be down a million academic rabbit trails, and that's fine. But I really was just thinking, guys need a vision for how to live. They don't have it, and this is a beautiful one. And I think women recognize that this is a good one. I saw this poster when I was in college. I don't know if you remember this. This is the most famous poster in the history of posters, and it's a guy holding a baby. It's called L'Enfant. It was taken by a guy in Paris. And the dude holding the baby is like, he's got his shirt off, he's wearing jeans, and of course he's a good looking guy. It's from a profile. But I'm like, why is this so popular? And when I was in college at the University of Illinois, and it was like every girl's room had the same poster. Like, what is so attractive about this guy? And what a couple girls told me, and I've since read about the poster, and it's this kind of the consensus, it's not the guy. I mean, he's a hot guy, but there's lots of male models out there. It's the way the baby's looking at him. And that was really interesting to me. Like, so this vulnerable thing is looking at him like, you're gonna guard over me, right? And you can see that in the look. And I just thought even then, there's women intuit when we're at our best. And that is, again, taking care of the vulnerable and the weak around us, and it's our job to protect them. So if you could even tell a 7-year-old boy, like I did with my son, what are you doing? You're hurting your sister. You're picking on her. You're betraying your role, man. You're here to protect her. That's your job, to protect her and make sure that she thrives and flourishes. Like, this is who you're supposed to be. And a 7-year-old boy can understand that. Like, that is my job. This is why I don't pick on animals, because I'm supposed to protect the animals. I'm not supposed to be cruel. But unfortunately, I don't think guys are told this very much. Like, this is your role. But once you do, you realize what you can do with your words. You can either betray that role, you can make your wife feel insecure, your family feel insecure, or you can use your words to make them feel secure around you. And once guys get a picture of that, I think it's beautiful, because you don't have to be, I don't hunt, I don't fish. I told you I have puppets. I play the flute. I mean, so if I can embody that, and when I do embody that, my wife is extremely attracted to me. Conversely, when I don't, when she has reasons to feel insecure around me, it's not an attractive thing. I just think there's something they intuit about us that's really good. So if there's a 5 angle to this book, I think it's maybe I want to know what's at the bottom of everything. I want to know what's really motivating people, what's really going on. I know muscles and trucks and motorcycles are awesome. That's not my thing. But what's really going on? What is really a beautiful picture of masculinity? And I do think that job that was given Adam in that narrative is it.
All right, let's unpack that a little bit. What was the task that Adam was given, or the tasks that Adam was given, that you believe all these many millennia later are at the core of the masculine that we need to reclaim, or we need to take responsibility for in our own lives?
Well, I think it is that job that was specifically given to him, and he was made keeper of the garden, and exploring that, it's really a matter of not just protecting the garden, like physically standing guard, although that's part of it, but again, also keeping it up. So if somebody's a gardener, you're creating space for a species that can't necessarily win the survival of the fittest in the wilderness. I mean, that's if you just hand it over to chaos and wilderness and survival of the fittest, well, certain species are going to win, other ones will never see the light of day, they'll be extinct. But there are these little beautiful blooms, there's these little beautiful things, there's these precious species that can survive because of your attention to them and your the way you water them and weed them and take care of them. But it's your space. And this is why I think it's true that when they both blew it, when Adam did not protect Eve from the serpent, the serpent figure in that story, he's there, he's with her, he's not far away. Like in the text, you look at the actual words, he's not off in a hammock somewhere, he's right there with her, and he doesn't say anything or do anything. Well, when they both blow it, God's reaction is he comes into the garden and he says, Adam, where are you? Like he's holding Adam responsible for keeping the garden and protecting it. They're both cursed, by the way, both Adam and Eve. She's given a different, incredibly significant role, which is sometimes translated helpmate or helper, but that doesn't catch it. Elsewhere in the Bible, it's rescuer. God is used as, that same word is used for God when he comes to rescue with his armies. Like that's what she is. But his role is this keeper of the garden. And I just happen to think that that's the role that women even now intuit that we're supposed to inhabit. So yeah, that's me unpacking that. I'm not a Hebrew scholar, And I'm just kind of taking a shot at it. I think it's true, but I'm no scholar. And I think we need some construction, and that's a pretty good one.
You're going to take a lot of heat for this book.
I know. That's what my friends told me. Fortunately, I have another book about not being offended. So
you can always reference that when you need to.
Yeah. I'll
Well,
have to read it.
you could, for all the obvious reasons, right? So someone might say this is a very reactionary sort of posture
Of
to
course.
take toward thinking about men and women, about the masculine and the feminine, that it's patriarchal, that it's offensive on lots of levels. I mean, how are you going to answer those people who would say, this is a sexist?
You don't want to get more of, though?
What's that?
The opposite.
Really?
Yeah. Because I'm not doing the Manly Men book. It's really not patriarchal. It's really not. I think a woman who reads it from the perspective of somebody who's like, I'm looking for this, like, what is he saying really? What's he really getting at? I'd be like, actually, I do want men to behave this way. Like, be my biggest fan, support me. That's what I'm saying as a husband and father. The problem I'm going to have is going to be with guys that are like, this doesn't look like, you didn't mention elk hunting. Like, you didn't, where's the man's, we need men to take a stand and stand
I mean, the
up.
wild at heart sort of view of...
I've had a friend say, this should be called mild at heart. So, you know what? If someone reads the book and they've got a critique, that's fine. Yeah. But like I said, I'm actually trying to give men a vision for what masculinity really is, because I think there really is a thing called masculinity and femininity, and they're actually, these are things. They're both parts of God's image. There's something beautiful about both. So if we're just going to deconstruct to the point we can't even say that there is such a thing, well, then I don't. I just humbly disagree, and I think that this actually is a pretty beautiful idea that our culture would be way better off if men were like this. It's not about owning women. It's not about treating people as property. It's not about flexing. It's not about threatening. It's the exact opposite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I think it was Flannery O'Connor who said something this is a bastardization of the quote, but she says something to the effect of, when I write a book and I put it out in the world, it's no longer my business.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to find the exact quote and send it to you. But it essentially is, now that it's out of my hands.
There it is.
There it is. Do with it as you please.
Yeah. Well, again, I want it to be a blessing. So if it is, and families are better off down the line, or women and children are treated better, but I get ripped, I have to say that's a good deal. I have to. I think it is.
I'm just a big believer, as long as it's not damaging to somebody, a piece of work, that, everything that is in addition to the conversation. Your book, I'm sure, as you would probably say, is not the end of the conversation. It's just another voice lending
that's where
itself
I have to
to
disagree, because it is the end of the conversation. This is the final.
This is it.
This is it.
No other book need be written.
Yeah. So, that's where we agree to disagree. This is the final book about masculinity.
Well, that's good self-promotion right there, brother. You just sold 500 extra books on that one. Keep that up, and you're going to be like at the top of the New York Times bestseller list right now. I can tell you that. Anthony.
Ian Cron.
What if I told you could get high quality, ethically sourced, organic, and non-GMO groceries delivered to your door for a lot less than you're paying now, and help out families in need?
Oh, that's something I'd want to know more about.
Yes, you do. Let me tell you, that's what I'm doing since I discovered Thrive Market. It's an online, membership-based market on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. With each membership, they donate one membership to a family in need. So far, in fact, they've donated over $4.5 million in healthy groceries.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? And they carefully vet each and every item, so I get the best selection of high-quality pantry essentials and sustainable meat and seafood online without cleaning out my wallet. You know what I love?
Tell me.
Jackson's Honest Sweet Potato Chips. Have you ever had those?
Oh, you're making my mouth water.
Got them from Thrive Market. You're welcome. Also, I love Ora Bora sparkling water in the cactus rose flavor.
Ian, you know I love my Ora Bora. My favorite is lavender cucumber.
Where'd you get it?
From Thrive Market.
That's right, you did. And my question to you, Anthony, is can your grocery store do that?
Not until this moment, folks. Join Thrive Market today to get 40% off your first order and a free gift worth over $50. That's Thrive, THRIVE, market.com/typology to get 40% off your first order and a free gift worth over $50. That's thrivemarket.com/typology. thrivemarket.com/typology.
So I think that men are cast in the role of the angry sex, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it's because, in some ways perhaps it's because it's culturally unacceptable for women to openly express anger without being labeled a bitch, for example, right? But also I think that there's this sort of archetype of the male being controlling and angry or potentially explosive and violent, you know, on and on and on. And yet you're painting a very different picture.
The opposite.
Okay.
I'm telling guys that anger is not masculine. Because of what I'm saying about the definition of it. You are someone who brings security, not insecurity. If you're an angry man in your home, you're not making your wife more secure. You're not making your kids more secure. You're doing the opposite. You're actually undermining their security. But if you're a man who's willing to take action to do what needs to be done, cool-headed, you're actually operating out of an understanding that humans are messed up. That's the world. But I'm gonna be a person who's a person of forgiveness. But I will take action to defend the vulnerable and the innocent. It's my opinion. You are fulfilling that role. And it's interesting because my wife, we had some kids the other night, and again, I'm not a fighter guy at all. But we had some high school guys out front of our house the other night, and they were just raising a huge ruckus. It was pretty loud, and they were wrestling and fighting, and there were people, I don't know what was going on. But it really didn't bother me. It was like 11 o'clock, we're in bed, and I'm like, well, let them, you know, these teenagers are going to be teenagers. And my wife was really stressed about it. She kept getting up and looking out the blinds, seeing what's going on, and somebody needs to do something. Maybe I should call the police. And I'm like, just don't worry about it. It's just kids doing stuff. Well, they kept going. And she went downstairs and she's like, I got to do something. So I'm lying in bed. Now she's thinking, what should we do about this downstairs? And it's like, okay, Brant, get up. Don't make your wife deal with this. So I put on some clothes real quick and I went to the front door and she was standing there like looking out, and I opened the door and I walked out there. And they dissipated. I don't think they dissipated before they saw me, but they were gone. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, I don't know if we're going to have like a West Side Story Rumble here or what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But when I came back, my wife was like really attracted to me. And I didn't even do anything. And I told her I didn't do anything. She's like, yeah, but that was cool. I mean, you went out there because you didn't want me to have to deal with it.
You can hire some guys to do that every couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she's a brilliant woman. My wife is a brilliant intellect and has extremely strong person whom I admire and respect. But she finds it very attractive. I'm actually willing to take action, actually do something. And so that I think she feels more secure because she knows I'm not going to be passive all the time. I am going to step up and do what it needs to be done for her and not just ignore a problem. And I think it's a real problem in a lot of relationships from what I can tell, just anecdotally. So again, it's not the anger thing. It's the anger makes you less of a good husband and less of a good keeper of the garden. It's the cool-headed willingness to act that makes you a good keeper of the garden. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So you write in the book that there are 6 decisions, right?
Yes.
That will set men apart from from others.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you just briefly tell me what those 6 decisions are?
Let's see. Let's see. Now, this is a good quiz for an author without his own book in front of him. They're all really good decisions. One was protecting the vulnerable. One was making women and children related to that feel secure. Like your neighborhood should be more secure because you're there, whether they know it or not. But they are, because you're there. One of them is forsaking the fake and relishing the real, which is obviously a huge issue for guys. Being willing to say I'm trying to say to younger guys, throwing yourself into the virtual world, into the metaverse or just pornography and games. You could say, given the reigning ethos, hey, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else, what does it matter? And I'm trying to tell them, because I'm this way too, like this could be my struggle as well. You are hurting other people because we needed you. We needed the you that you were created to be here. There's people that could have been blessed by that, protected by that. There's people that would have benefited from you being maximally you growing up and developing and being engaged with the people around you. We really would have benefited, but now we won't. So I want people to understand that, like it's not as long as I'm doing no harm construct. So that's one of them. I'm trying to think of the other. Take responsibility for your own spiritual life. I'm trying to encourage guys, because I'm this way too, being a 5 and being not particularly emotional. I don't resonate with worship music. I mean, I'm a musician, but I still
Bring
don't.
it.
I don't have the reaction, but you see people. I actually got up. I was a guest speaker it was a mega church type thing. And they had a great band, and the fog machines and lasers and satellites or whatever's going on in there. And I got up afterward, and everybody had their hands up, and it was, emotional and stuff. And I said, how many of you, I'm just curious, during the worship music, feel like maybe everybody else is having a different experience than you are, like you don't quite get it? And half the people, I swear, raised their hands. Like, there's a lot of people that are not having goosebump moments. It's fine if you do. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Those emotions are good, I'm sure. But there's a lot of us that we were taught to equate spirituality with some sort of emotional state. And a lot of those are guys who feel like I'm missing something. Like maybe God has abandoned me because of my sin, the things I've done wrong, things I'm caught up in. And I'm trying to tell us, me, myself included, I don't see Jesus talking much about emotions. There's this thing called hesed, steadfast, loving kindness, this loyalty that he's big on. Like that God's big on, this loyalty thing where we continue to obey and keep coming back to him even though we're sinners. We keep coming back every day. He still loves us. Loyalty I can get. I can do that. Like that's what God's actually looking for. So I'm trying to encourage guys on those lines to take responsibility and don't be so discouraged about it. Like just keep coming back. And I think I've got 5 out of the 6. The 6th one's probably the most powerful one, but I can't remember what it is.
It's the one that will sell the most books.
It absolutely
let's leave it out
it's
for now.
It's best left unsaid. Yes. It's too good. In fact, it's too good for the podcast.
That's right. It's the hidden gem. So
Yes,
go buy the book
the hidden
and
gem.
Go get the book and you'll full circle will come around, right? Full circle. You know what's so interesting to me is that many 5s I know are drawn to the mystics. Mm-hmm. And they're drawn to the contemplative life. Of course, that's very natural to a 5, right?
Yes.
As long as they can get their head out of the way, they can become richly, how do I want to say this? They are looking for a unitive experience with God. They're looking for union. And of course, some 5s get stuck, particularly young ones, in the rut of theology.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And particularly, I meet so many in the Reformed tradition. But that aside, they can get stuck in the rut versus moving into the space of saying, all these thoughts about God. Well, it's like Pascal, right? It's like all these thoughts, all these. He wrote his greatest work and then burned it. It's like, clearly had this 5 energy thing going on. It's like, no, it's about union. right? Of being swept up into the mystic union with God. Is that a little piece of who you are?
That resonates with me. I've gone down those directions too, and I get impatient with that now. I pick up a little bit of that with you too, because I have done that. I'm like, you're missing it. Like he didn't create us to be theological automatons. That was not his goal. I'm going to create a universe, a place where I can nurse people who will beat each other about the head and neck with theses, like he apparently wants to know us. And he wants to partner with us. And so that's been something I've been growing in just the last few years, in enjoying. And I don't want to just get caught up in my head. I do want it to be a relationship with him. But that's one of the appealing things. I go back and read the Gospels just because Jesus is the only one who makes any sense to me. He really is. I don't, his understanding of the human nature, his willingness to accept the simple and to astonish or confuse the proud. Like, I love that. I really, really love it. Like, just right straight to the heart of the matter. And to me, if I was talking to another five, I'd really encourage him, I'm not in this for the Christian t-shirts. I'm not in it for bumper stickers or the music. Like, I'm in it because of Jesus, to me, is really compelling. And as a five, the way that he gets to the bottom of things and outflanks everyone intellectually is very satisfying to me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So, it's hard for fives to allow others to know them, right? Or it can take far longer.
Yeah.
Right? For, like, you can get to know me pretty quickly. I'm a very emotional person. I'm empathic. I have a rich love I'm very curious about other people, their stories, how they've made sense of their suffering, how they've found redemption and loss. These are kinds of topics that I'm very, very comfortable and attracted to. So I'm not hard to get, I can be very vulnerable with people pretty quickly. So I'm curious then, how do you let God know you as a five? How do you let God in behind the veil that typically fives have trouble with when it comes to other people?
Man, that's a great question. I don't know how. I can tell you what I'm doing now. When I walk our dog, we have a golden retriever named Cozy, and when I walk her, I try to have an honest conversation with him. And I've never been good at that, ever, until the last couple of years, really since the pandemic. And I started getting into walking more and thought, okay, well, this is going to be the time I actually do this. It's embarrassing because I've been a believer for so long, but I haven't communicated with him like I should, like I could have, is how I should put it. So I also heard something really helpful, which is if your mind drifts when you're trying to talk to God, find what your mind is drifting to and bring that back into the prayer. Because apparently it matters to you. So whatever that subject is, so it must matter. It'll matter to him too. And the other thing that's helped me understand is the way that God chose Abraham as someone to partner with. I mentioned partnering with him before. Like, when I conceived of it that way, like, okay, well, prayer then is me and God talking about what we're going to do together today. And that's helped me immensely. So I don't know if that's a how-to as much as it's what I'm learning about now. And I'm getting some traction with it. Like, I'm growing up. I think I'm getting more patient and more loving with people. And I am more joyful. So I think those are good markers. Does that make sense? Probably not a good answer, but that's what I'm doing.
So you talked about your children earlier and the desire for them to have a different experience of life than you had. And I'm hearing, as you speak, obviously, actually, I'm hearing capital T trauma, not little t trauma. Probably both complex trauma and, what I've called episodic, some, moments of profound trauma. And I think in some ways our personalities are born from trauma, that they're actually a reaction to trauma. And I think the Enneagram supports that idea. Try and access your feeling space right now and tell me as much as you can from that well of feeling that you have access to, imagining your child were here, what would you tell them that you feel about them?
See, you're trying to get this thing to happen right now on the podcast where I just explode in a bunch of sobs.
No, but we're okay if you do. Remember, I'm comfortable in that space.
Let's make him cry.
No, I'm curious though.
Oh gosh, I don't know that I can. Which is weird too, because I'm a words guy. So I'm a 5 who comes with words. I come bearing words. I do traffic in words, and I am a 5. So I almost feel like an ambassador from the 5s. Like I come representing all of us.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
There's a 5 I was working with one time, and this really helped him. I said, don't think your way to your feelings, but imagine your way to your feelings.
Oh, gosh.
So if you could imagine that scenario, what might you feel?
I'm talking to my own kids. Good grief. Guys, I can't do it. And I'm sorry. Man. Ugh. See, I had this dream one time. It's kind of like a vision. I don't have visions very often, but just like this image that popped into my head. I was first leaving to go to India, and I had never traveled like that. Since then, I've been all over, like, I don't know how many different countries. But the first time, the kids were 6 and 3, and I just had this image of us, like the 4 of us, and it was a very sweet image, just outdoors, like coming down a hill. And I thought, I don't want them to stay this age, but this has been the biggest honor of my life. And they know this because I treasured them. They know they were treasured all the way through, and that they still are. But it got better and better. Like, I was worried that if I could just bottle this moment right now, but I enjoyed every single stage. It got better and better, and it's still better. I mean, everything, every bit of their character is a joy to me, and I didn't expect that to happen. So they're friends. I respect them. I trust them. I just enjoy. There's just nothing right now. It's like, it's weird. It's just been distilled down to joy. Before it's, protection and concern and correction, but that's all just been distilled. So that would be the best picture. I still have that image in my head of the 4 of us, and I don't want to go back to that, but I still like it. Like, that happened. That really happened. Now, we're about to have our first grandchild in weeks. So I'm looking forward to that whole experience too. I'm sure that'll open up new ways for me to try to hold my emotions in.
Well, first of all, thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure. We've had about 250, 300 episodes. I don't even know what we've had now. I've never seen someone work so hard to give an answer that was true. No. That's a compliment.
Okay, thank you.
That's not a joke. That's just honoring the moment that you worked hard to find that answer. And I appreciate the effort, because I think it will very much help other people when they listen, particularly 5s. But I just had 2 thoughts in response, or 2 senses that I wanted to respond to. The first is what I experienced as you were speaking, as you were making contact with very deep emotion, was I felt like I was watching an example of great masculinity.
Thanks for saying that.
Because I do think that feelings matter, Then the second thing that struck me was, you were talking about l'enfant and this man holding the baby, right? This masculine man holding the baby. But what was attractive to the woman was the way that the baby was looking at the man. So, in psychology, of course, this, we call that mirroring. That when the mother or the father peers into the eyes of the newborn, that the child looks up, and their existence is validated. So they have a sense of, oh, I am separate from, of course, in the beginning, I'm not separate, but eventually the child knows, I am separate from you. I have my own personhood, my own sense of self, right? But I would say that if you look at the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, unless they're biologically or genetically driven, the vast majority of illnesses in that book are as a result of somehow or another the gaze between the father and mother and the child being interrupted or broken. And I think part of the journey of a father is to learn how to gaze into the eyes of their children with that a word that love doesn't even capture, right? That seems to be too trivial, even a word it's really that the parent isn't looking at them, they're beholding them. They're seeing deeply into the soul of the other, right? And, we oftentimes, particularly in therapy, we privilege words, tell your children this, and yes, of course we should tell our children we love them, but sometimes it's the gaze, and sometimes it's the touch, and sometimes it's the words. And so there are lots of ways to communicate. And I think that I hope fives don't think, oh, I've got to gush feelings in order for my children to feel I love them.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
I hope fives don't think, oh, I've got to gush feelings in order for my children to feel I love them.
I've gotten better with gestures. I struggle to make eye contact. I'm doing it with you now. It's a rote mechanism. Like, I do it because I was told you're supposed to make eye contact. That's what humans expect. Not for too long, look away, then back, then look away. Like, I've learned, this is a learned behavior. My son, the same thing. Like, this is what we've learned. It can become mechanistic. But I always avoided hugs and any kind of touching. Just avoided it. And now I initiate it.
Interesting.
And this is recent. This is in the last few years. And I still am shocking friends. They're like, whoa, Brant, you all right? Like, you're initiating now. You're not running, not shirk. I used to just shirk away just reflexively. Like, you hug Carolyn on the way out, you shake Brant's hand or you say, hey, thanks for coming. But now I initiate it. And I've just realized it's part of being human. It's good. And it's good for my son, and it's good for my daughter, and it's good for my wife and my mom and my neighbors and my friends.
Mm-hmm. I first of all, this conversation could go on forever because I'm so
Absolutely.
Curious and so not just curious but deeply moved, and I feel very honored to be in a conversation with you today for a host of reasons. But I want to ask you this. Can you tell me what love is?
Well, I think it's when I want the best for somebody else. I will the best for them. And I think the antithesis of that is me using somebody for my own ends. So I think that's I think it's the best operational definition I could come up with. Dallas Willard was really good about this. He would say, people use love. Obviously, we use it for everything. I love chocolate cake, he would say. Do you love chocolate cake? Because what you actually want to do is destroy it. Like, so that obviously, and we can substitute that in for a lot of romantic things too. It's like, do you really love this person, or you actually want to use this person? Because you're provided these feelings. That you're basically saying that you give me these feelings, you give me these benefits. It's like a contractual consumer. I think actual love would be, I want what's best for you. So, what do you think? Do you have a definition yourself that you would hazard? I could steal and claim for myself?
No.
It'll be the title of my next book?
No, I think I would say something very similar. It's, that love is a radical act of self-donation. Okay, I think that's what we see in Jesus. Mm-hmm. That there's this radical self-abandoning. Mm-hmm. In the good sense of the word. I don't mean that in the contemporary psychological parlance of, don't abandon yourself, which is true. I mean, there's levels at which you don't want to do that. But I do think there's this self-emptying. Simon Tugwell has this beautiful vision or image. He says that the Christian life should be cruciform, open-armed, like we see on the cross, and meaning that somehow or another that we he calls it the radically undefended heart. To live with a radically undefended heart in the world.
Man, that's such a process. But it's doable. But you know what? There is a trajectory there where it is doable. We can get somewhere. We can get along the line there. And I had just seen this thing. I don't know if you saw this. This is like yesterday as we're recording this, but there was this longitudinal study from Scotland. Did you see this?
No.
1,100 14-year-olds were studied in 1950. And like their characteristics were written down. They did an in-depth profile on them. And they just followed up with all of them, as many as they could. So they're what? I don't know if they're 87 or whatever they are. But there's like 200 left that assented to
I do. There's a documentary on this.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too. I'm not sure it's the same.
Okay.
It might be. But they found no relation in characteristics between the 14-year-old and the 80-year-old. Like for good or ill. It might be they were good, but there's no, they just said you're so transformed, not just physically, like every cell in your body's changed, but it's like our personalities, we have a trajectory that we have some control over. We can grow and learn. It's like that's what your book is. And as I was reading it, just thinking about like, no, taking that story as a child, I don't have to live that anymore. I'm not in the bathroom anymore.
That's right. I
don't have to shut the door theoretically or metaphysically or whatever anymore. But for some reason you can live that narrative the rest of your life. I don't have to.
That's right.
And I'm very freed by that. It's also a little scary because we are shapers of our character, which C.S. Lewis was big on. Like, watch the little things when you're young because they become the big thing later. You become a caricature. But I was really heartened by that. And when I saw that study, I actually thought of the chapter that I'd read in your book about fives and I've been thinking, I don't have to be that kid. I have mercy on that kid. I can feel for that kid, but I don't have to have my arms folded up blocking my heart the rest of my life. It can be cruciform, like you just said. Mm-hmm. And I am going to steal what you just said. And I'm not going to attribute it to you. I'm going to act like I just came up with it out of the blue. So I hope that's all right.
Feel free.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't own it. It's just the
Copyright
truth.
Brant Hansen. I just said it. Said it.
Well, everybody, I'm talking to Brant Hansen, the author of the new book, The Men We Need, God's Purpose for the Manly Man, the avid indoorsman, or any man willing to show up. Brother, this was really freaking rich.
Thank you. Again, an honor to talk to you. My wife will be. She likes some of the stuff I do, and she likes a lot of it. She's very supportive, but this will be like, I was on typology. She's excited about that.
Well, it's been a delight, and I feel like I'm going to leave this conversation a better person than when I entered it.
Well, I know why you have 5 friends.
Why is that?
Because think I guess you're making everybody better in their own number of ways, but maybe that you endeavor to struggle with that. I think fives, maybe we're so obtuse or so not obtuse. It's hard for people to understand us. So it's really refreshing if somebody does and appreciates it. It's like a moth and a light, I think, for a five to be understood, and then you can finally relax. So I think I'm not surprised. And I know Michael Cusick too, and I could totally see that.
Yeah.
Being friends.
Oh, a strong 2 though. A strong 2 on the Enneagram.
Is he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, strong 2.
But he has Asperger's.
He does.
Yeah.
And there is that's a future conversation we can have about the relationship. I do think a lot of little kids who are 5s on the Enneagram are prematurely diagnosed as having Asperger's.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think a lot of 4s kids are diagnosed as being depressive too early. I think that 1 kids can be diagnosed as having obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or 7s with ADHD, or 8s with oppositional personality disorder, or 9s with dependent personality disorder, sometimes ADHD, 6s, I suppose anxiety disorders. I could go on and on, right? I'm not saying that any of that might not be valid, right? I am saying that, and nor do I think that we shouldn't offer pharmacological interventions for children when it's appropriate. I just don't like rushing to conclusions when sometimes it's just their little personality growing
Absolutely.
up.
Totally.
And then other things, I do think, for a person who has Asperger's, that I don't entirely understand the mystery of the intersection between personality and I don't know. I'm also even hesitant about labels.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they make me very tense because they're virtually, sometimes I feel like, okay, that's just a good excuse for some kind of medical code that we have to use. We got to call it something, so someone will pay us for talking to them, right? But they have some use. I'm going to be completely cynical about it. But that's a conversation we can have down the road. But I do feel a little unqualified to kind of unpack it. So,
well, I don't let qualifications stop me from opining on stuff. So I'm going to go ahead. So, no, I don't know either. It is a mystery. I do think, to me, it's valuable as a shorthand way for people to understand me a little faster. Why is he always looking at the floor when he's talking, or is he not paying attention to me because he's not looking at me, or what? Why did he come across? Why is he so blunt sometimes? And I have to. There's just things I have to address. I got to grow up and address. But also, if I can say that and people understand it, it's a relief to me.
We all carry the responsibility, right, to at some point at least attempt to live into the highest expression of who we are. And I think that, for some of it, there are different things I have to do that require me to burn a lot more calories than it does somebody else of a different style of being in the world, And so, that's some of the stuff you got to expend calories for, right? So
be it.
So be it. And so be it, everybody. I want you to go out and get The Men We Need, God's Purpose for the Manly Man, The Avid Indoorsman, or Any Man Willing to Show Up by my new friend Brant Hansen. The Typology Tribe. Remember these words: may you have love, may you have joy, may you have peace, may you have healing, and may you have rest. Until next time.